I was recruited in March of 1998, as I mentioned, to head a new risk management group that would, among other things, brief for senior management the off-the-balance sheet partnerships of Andy Fastow. Within approximately 6 months of my employment, I would discover what appeared to be bank fraud to the tune of $250 million when Enron took out a loan from Bank of New York and Nations Bank secured by 80 million MMBTUs of gas. Unfortunately, the gas did not exist. I would quickly discover that Rebecca Mark's husband, Michael Juicebosh, was committing espionage by stealing trade secrets. And so I went back to my supervisor and I said, I can no longer work for a company where I understand that the CEO is involved in this and knows about it and is attempting to cover it up. The final straw came for me when I heard the head of accounting of EBS, Enron Broadband Services, approach Jeff Skilling at an all-employee meeting and say, "Where are you getting your numbers?" To which he responded, "These are the numbers I was given." And she said, "No, you weren't, because I give you those numbers." So a week before I ultimately resigned with the company, I decided in a moment of desperation that someone needed to know about this, besides the fact that my supervisors seemed to think that it was not important enough to do anything about it other than to ask me to cover it up. I called the Enron hotline number, the Employee Assistance Program, and I laid out for the woman, much like I have laid out for you, the details of my career over 3 years, and I was told, "Ma'am, I'm sorry. Inasmuch as our fees are paid by Enron, I can't take your call. You'll have to hire a private lawyer." I called the government, and I said, "I have evidence of bank fraud and espionage on the part of Enron." I was speaking to Senator Byron Dorgan's office, a Democrat from North Dakota. The young man said, "Send us an email." And I said, "Do you read them?" He said, "Of course we do." And I said, "Okay." So within minutes, sent the email, never received a response, and to this day they deny that I ever contacted their office despite my email and phone records. It never occurred to me from my office or my cubicle in Houston, Texas, that I would somehow be responsible in some form or another for the potential downfall of our capital markets, for which I am deeply saddened, and certainly owe society my deepest regrets and apologies. That while Enron has, of course, become the poster child for corporate corruption, the fact of the matter is Enron is not unique. And my concern for each of you today is that if these business practices were going on inside your organization, how would you know about it? So I want to explain to you kind of what Enron was and what they did so that you understand where we start in this thing. Originally, they were a boring gas company. They transported gas from point A to point B and ultimately to an end user through a local distribution company. But that wasn't good enough. Boring wasn't good. So it was replaced with innovation. And they began trading natural gas like a commodity. And that is fine to some degree, because initially what was meant to happen is that with deregulation, it would stabilize prices. And what Enron quickly learned, or the innovative people inside Enron quickly learned, is that by manipulating the prices, they could establish a market as a risk management company. All of us were willing participants in this. The banks knew it, and in the end, what Enron did, they were insolvent 2 years before they filed for bankruptcy, and they were doing what many of us do, cash management. They were borrowing from quarter to quarter to quarter, and the banks were so willing to do it because they were getting paid huge fees. You see, I am no different than the other executives at Enron and the other employees that chose to look the other way for the financial benefit of stock options, for which I have been deeply impacted for the rest of my life. Every one of us is all of us. The thing about the actuarial science that I have seen is that boring is good. Boring is really, really, really good. Greed is not good, despite what Michael Douglas said in Wall Street.